This morning, there is a promising development in the fight against breast cancer. A new study shows that blood tests known as liquid biopsies could help doctors change treatments months before a tumor starts growing again on a scan.
Yeah, that's right. Our health expert, Dr. Payal Kohli, is joining us now with how this could be a game changer for patients and what it means going forward. Dr. Kohli, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we all know what a biopsy is, but what about a liquid biopsy? What is that?
Yeah, so normally when we do a biopsy, we take tissue. We take a solid piece of the tumor or whatever the mass is, look at it under the microscope looking for cancer. This is looking at body liquids. So usually blood, but you could also look at saliva, you could look at urine, you could even look at spinal fluid, looking for fragments of cancer cells, whether that's DNA, whether that's protein, whether that's RNA, or specifically whether that's mutations to know if the cancer is changing.
So what are the pros and cons of a liquid biopsy?
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool because the first thing it does is it could offer earlier cancer detection. You can imagine how non-invasive it is to just give a blood test as opposed to having a biopsy of a piece of tissue, so much safer. The second is it could be used to sort of monitor treatment. How is the cancer responding over time? Third, is the cancer changing over time? And the fourth, which I'm the most excited about, is could it be used as a screening test? Not in people who already have cancer, but in healthy people, because often we wait for that mass to actually know that somebody has cancer. But if we could get our annual physical every year, check a panel of blood tests that could tell us whether we have cancer, that would be a game changer.
What about results, getting those back? Is that change the timeline for that?
Very much so. So if you think about it, when you wait for a mass to grow in a CT scan or a PET scan or something else, by then it's almost too late because you're sort of behind. By definition, the cancer's already gotten ahead, it's growing. But when you start to see changes early in the DNA, then you could actually say, okay, the treatment's not working anymore. Maybe something has mutated. Let me change the treatment. Now, the caveat to all this is that if the cancer is not giving off DNA fragments or if it's not sensitive enough, you could get faked out. You could basically miss a change or you could miss something and think that everything is going okay.
So what did this new study tell you specifically about breast cancer?
So it looked at women who had estrogen-sensitive breast cancer receiving a specific treatment, and then it did these liquid biopsies on them and saw whether or not their cancer was changing. And then 1 out of 10 people had their cancer change on liquid biopsies. And the ones that actually ended up changing treatment because of the liquid biopsy had twice as likely to not have cancer growth. So that actually changed it in a positive way. Now, what we don't yet know is, does that result in the women living longer? Because that's really what we want to do. Does it result in the cancer being sort of less aggressive? Or are we just exposing them to more toxic therapies earlier? But so far, it seems very promising.
So what do doctors do now to monitor cancer?
So right now we're doing the scans, which again, I think we're almost falling a bit behind because by the time you have a CT scan or PET scan, the things have already gotten too late. But looking at these kind of blood tests, and I'm thinking not just one blood test, but really like a chip, a computer chip of a matrix of many different blood tests to try to look at how the tumor is changing. I think that's the future of cancer.
What unanswered questions do we still have about this?
We're fighting cancer so hard, and it's one of those things we just haven't really gotten ahead of, I think, as well as we could. So the biggest sort of unanswered questions are really, who is this missing? So this study was largely done in white people. So does this apply to different races? It was also a very specific subset of breast cancer. We know now that for colon cancer, there's now a DNA blood test that again uses the same concept to screen people, but that has not yet been shown to save lives. So we're not using it as a replacement for colonoscopies, but just sort of as an adjunct. So the future really looks like, is this something that could get incorporated into our everyday armamentarium where we start to check people regularly and make sure that we're monitoring treatment in a smarter way rather than just radiating them and scanning them every few months.
Like you said, kind of at your annual checkup, how easy is that? You get that blood test done.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
and cancer, again, because there's so many different types and so many different forms of cancer, it's one of those that's very hard to check. But if you could get a few specific DNA tests or a few specific cancer markers, put them in that chip, to me, that's incredible.
And real fast, let me ask you this. Could you do that at a younger age? Because right now, you got to wait until a certain age to even get certain screenings.
That's exactly right. The cost of the screening, as well as the invasiveness, like a colonoscopy, or, getting mammograms that have radiation and scans and such, all of these have big burdens. But a blood test that's easily done, inexpensive, that could start a lot earlier. And we're seeing a lot of younger people getting cancer. So if we start screening earlier detection means cure.
Yeah, that could be a game changer.
Yeah.
Dr. Kohli, thank you.
And you can find all of Dr. Kohli's appearances at 9news.com/Dr. Kohli. Let's get